Several centuries ago, the Pope decreed that all the Jews had to convert to Catholicism or leave Italy. There was a huge outcry from the Jewish community, so the Pope offered a deal. He'd have a religious debate with the leader of the Jewish community. If the Jews won, they could stay in Italy. If the Pope won, they'd have to convert or leave. The Jewish people met and picked an aged and wise rabbi to represent them in the debate. However, as the rabbi spoke no Italian and the Pope spoke no Hebrew, they agreed that it would be a silent debate. On the chosen day, the Pope and the rabbi sat opposite each other. The Pope raised his hand and showed 3 fingers. The rabbi looked back and raised 1 finger. Next, the Pope waved his finger around his head. The rabbi pointed to the ground where he sat. The Pope brought out a communion wafer and a chalice of wine. The rabbi pulled out an apple. With that, the Pope stood up and declared himself beaten and said that the rabbi was too clever. The Jews could stay in Italy. Later, the cardinals met with the Pope and asked him what had happened. The Pope said, "First, I held up 3 fingers to represent the Trinity." He responded by holding up a single finger to remind me there is still only one God, common to both our beliefs. Then, I waved my finger around my head to show him that God was all around us. He responded by pointing to the ground to show that God was also right here with us. Finally, I pulled out the wine and wafer to show that God absolves us of all our sins. He pulled out an apple to remind me of the original sin. He bested me at every move, and I could not continue. Meanwhile, the Jewish community gathered to ask the rabbi how he had won. "I don't have a clue," the rabbi said. First, he told me that we had 3 days to get out of Italy, so I gave him the finger. Then he tells me that the whole country would be cleared of Jews, so I told him that we were staying right here. "And then what?" asked a woman. "Who knows?" shrugged the rabbi. "He took out his lunch, so I took out mine." A man is on his deathbed, and he asks his wife, "Martha, soon I will be gone forever, and there's something I have to know. In all of these 50 years of marriage, have you ever been unfaithful to me?" Martha replied, "Well, Henry, I have to be honest with you. Yes, I've been unfaithful to you 3 times during these 50 years, but always for a good reason." Henry was obviously hurt by his wife's confession, but said, "I never suspected. Can you tell me what you mean by good reasons?" Martha said, "The first time was shortly after we were married, and we were about to lose our little house because we couldn't pay the mortgage. Do you remember that one evening I went to see the banker, and the next day he notified you that the loan would be extended?" Henry recalled the visit to the banker and said, "I can forgive you for that. You saved our home." "But what about the second time?" Martha asked. "And do you remember when you were so sick, but we didn't have the money to pay for the heart surgery you needed? Well, I went to see your doctor that one night, and if you recall, he did the surgery at no charge." "I recall that," said Henry. "And you did it to save my life, so of course, I can forgive you for that. Now tell me about the third time." "All right," Martha said. "So do you remember when you ran for president of your golf club and you needed 73 more votes?" A New York divorce lawyer died and arrived at the pearly gates. St. Peter asks him, "What have you done to merit entrance into heaven?" The lawyer thought a moment, then said, "A week ago, I gave a quarter to a homeless person on the street." St. Peter asked Gabriel to check this out in the record, and after a moment, Gabriel affirmed that this was true. St. Peter said, "Well, that's fine, but it's not really quite enough to get you into heaven." The lawyer said, Wait, there's more. 3 years ago, I also gave a homeless person a quarter." St. Peter nodded to Gabriel, who after a moment nodded back, affirming this too had been verified. St. Peter then whispered to Gabriel, "Well, what do you suggest we do with this fellow?" Gabriel gave the lawyer a sidelong glance, then said to St. Peter, "Let's give him back his 50 cents and tell him to go to hell." One day in Ireland, two leprechauns knock on the door of a convent. The Mother Superior opens the door to see the two little green men. "How may I help you?" she asks. "Mother Superior?" the younger leprechaun says. "Are there any leprechaun nuns in your convent?" The Mother Superior thinks for a while and answers, "No, we have no leprechaun nuns." "Well, miss, do you know of any leprechaun nuns in the county?" the younger leprechaun asks. The Mother Superior thinks for a second and answers, "As far as I know, there aren't any in the county." "Well, do you know of any leprechaun nuns in all of Ireland then?" the younger leprechaun asks. The Mother Superior ponders the question, then says, "As far as I know, there aren't any in this convent, county, or in this country." "What's with you and leprechaun nuns?" the younger leprechaun says to his friend. "I told you you were screwing a penguin." An elderly couple is flying to Hawaii for a 2-week vacation to celebrate their 50th anniversary. Suddenly, the captain announces over the public address system, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to say that I have some bad news. Our engines are malfunctioning, and we will attempt an emergency landing. Luckily, I see an uncharted island below us, and we should be able to land on the beach. However, the odds are that we may never be rescued and will have to live on the island for the rest of our lives." Thanks to the skill of the flight crew, the plane lands safely on the island. An hour later, the husband turns to his wife and asks, "Honey, did we pay the car bill this month?" "No, sweetheart," she responds. Still shaken from the crash landing, he then asks, "Did we pay our credit card bill yet?" "Oh no, I'm sorry, I forgot to send the check," she says. "One last thing. Did you remember to pay the medical bill for the hospital visit last month?" he asks. "Oh, forgive me, sweetheart," begged the wife. "I didn't send that one either." The husband grabs her and gives her the biggest hug in 50 years. She pulls away and asks him, "What was the hug for?" The husband answers, "Don't you see? The debt collectors will find us." A little boy goes to his father and asks, "Daddy, how was I born?" The father answers, "Well, son, I guess one day you were going to find out anyway. Your mum and I first got together in an internet chat room. Then I set up a date via email and we met at a cyber cafe. We sneaked into a secluded room where your mother agreed to a download from my hard drive. As soon as I was ready to upload, we discovered that neither one of us had used a firewall. Since it was too late to hit the delete button, a little pop-up window appeared 9 months later that said, 'You've got mail.'" A blonde walks into the police department looking for a job. The officer asks her some questions. "What's 2 plus 2? The blonde answers, 4. The officer asks, "What's the square root of 100? She answers, 10. The officer nods. "Good. Now who killed Abraham Lincoln?" The blonde thinks for a minute, then says, I don't know." The officer says, "Well, you can go home and think about it. Come back tomorrow." The blonde goes home and calls up one of her friends, who asks her if she got the job. The blonde replies excitedly, "Not only did I get the job, I'm already working on a murder case." My friends, if you want to watch other funny jokes, subscribe to the channel.